Jaya Kunja Bihari Jokpi Jana Balabha Jaya Giri Vanadhari Gopi Jana Balabha Jaya Giri Vanadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bonachadi Yamuna Tira Bonachadi Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Astadada Sataji Mad Abhay Charan Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Astadata Satasisi Machida Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinata Syamakundu Radhakundi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Can you turn that button off? Om Mangyana Timarandasya Gyana Jana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sigrave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Siyuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchaka Patrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patijanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadev Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Readings from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 26. Patalamitasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota golfao Talatalam vai purushasya janghe Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota gulfao Talatalam vai purushasya gange. Please chant. Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Hatam vishva srijota gopao Talatalam vai purushasya jange Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota golfao Talatalam vai purushasya jange. Ladies. Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota golfo Tatalam vai purushasya range Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota gulfao Talatalam vai purushasya jange Patalametasya hi padamulam Patanti parsni prapade rasatalam Mahatalam vishva srijota gopao Talatalam vai purushasya jange Patalam. The planet in the bottom of the universe. Etasya. Of his. He. Exactly. Padamulam. Soles of the feet. Patanti. They study it. Parsni. Of the ankles. Prapade. Under the foot. Mine says foot. Is that? I don't know. This is the one I have. Gosh, where am I? Foot. Parasatalam. The planets named Rasatala. Mahatalam. The planet named Mahatala. Vishvasrijaha. Of the creator of the universe. Ata. Thus. Ufao. The calves. The serious problems here. Tala, the planet named Tala. Atala, the planet named Atala. Vai, as they are. Burushasha, of the gigantic person. Janghe, on the knees. What did yours say? The shanks. Okay. Didn't know that's what knees mean. Okay, I didn't know that. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottom of the feet of the Universal Lord, and the ankles and the soles are the Rasatala planets. The calves, ankles, mine says calves, are Mahatala planets, and his knees, shanks, constitute the Tala and Atala planets. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Outside the bodily existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the manifested cosmic existence has no reality. Everything and anything of the manifested world rests on him, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:4. But that does not imply that everything and anything in the vision of a materialist is the Supreme Personality. The conception of the universal form of the Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord, but the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording over it is not God realization. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord. And as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, one must cultivate the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of virata realization will have very little effect on the seer. The transcendental Lord, in any conception of his form, is never a part of the material creation. He keeps his identity as Supreme Spirit in all circumstances and is never affected by the three material qualities, for everything material is contaminated. The Lord always exists by his internal energy. The universe is divided into 14 planetary systems, 7 planetary systems called Burvar, Swar, Mahar, Jana, Tapas, and Satya are upward planetary systems, one above the other. There are also 7 planetary systems downward, known as Tala, Atala, Vitala, Rasatala, Talatala, Mahatala, and Patala, gradually one below the other. In this verse, the description begins from the bottom because it is in the line of devotion that the Lord's bodily description should be begun from his feet. Sukadeva Goswami is a recognized devotee of the Lord, and he is exactly correct in the description. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paska Tadishtarale. So in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada is explaining that outside the Lord's bodily existence, the manifested cosmic existence has no reality. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita 9:4, by me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And Prabhupada points out that just because Krishna is the source of the manifest world does not mean that everything in it is Krishna. In other words, if the manifest creation is viewed or used separately from the mission of the Supreme Lord, it cannot be considered to be non-different from the Supreme Lord. For example, if someone becomes enamored by any aspect of the created world without acknowledging the source of it, then it will not help one develop their dormant love for Krishna, the source of all creation. So it means everything is part of Krishna, Krishna is in everything, but the perspective or the perception of the materialist that sees something separate is not, means that Krishna is not there in his consciousness. Prabhupada explains that although the concept of the universal form may give a materialistic person an opportunity to think about the Lord, it will have very little, if any, impact on their spiritual advancement unless they meditate on it in an attitude of service. In a previous verse, coming up to this one, Prabhupada does point out that the universe is only a part of the Lord's Virat body or universal form, and that less intelligent men are amazed by his different energies without understanding the source of all these energies. And Prabhupada gives the example of an aboriginal or a tribal person who may be completely struck with wonder when they see lightning or a gigantic mountain or an enormous banyan tree. And such persons, they may praise the strength of a tiger or an elephant, but because they don't understand, they don't even have the capacity even to understand or have faith in the reality that there's a source of all of those powerful material energies, they cannot perceive the Lord's true transcendental form. Still, Prabhupada says, if a materialistic person can imagine all aspects of the universe as part of the Supreme Lord's body and start to offer praise and respect and gratitude to it as the Lord's form, it is possible that eventually they will understand the Lord's all-spiritual transcendental form, which is the source of all the Lord's manifested energies. So the Lord is so kind that he joins people where they are. He's in everything, but he shows up in everyone's life in a way that they can make some little advancement towards awakening their relationship with him. But because a materialistic person only appreciates Krishna's manifest energies that they can see or feel tangibly, they can touch, they can hear, smell, taste, Krishna, he reveals himself just to awaken their love in a material form through material energy. So what a compassionate God that is, that he joins people wherever they are capable of perceiving him. Prabhupada explains in the purport of the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna manifested his Virat form just to convince less intelligent class of men and women who cannot conceive the Lord as an absolute person. We know that often people will perceive of an energy, a living energy, or a spirit, all-pervading spirit, without acknowledging that God is actually a person. Now, the second part of this purport, Prabhupada explains that the description of Krishna's universal form in the verse begins from the soles of his feet, because that is the process of approaching the Lord by surrendering unto his lotus feet. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, 24, 52, Prabhupada says, when a devotee wants to see the transcendental form of the Lord, he begins his meditation on the Lord's body by first looking at the feet of the Lord. In Canto 1, 822, he says, one should begin to see the Lord from his lotus feet, gradually rising to the thighs, waist, chest, and face. One should not try to look at the Lord's face without being accustomed to seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains in the purport of Canto 1, 1126, that the lotus has a kind of honey, which is transcendentally relished by the devotees. They are like the bees who are always after the honey. And Srila Rupa Goswami, the great devotee acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, has sung a song about his lotus honey, comparing himself to the bee. O my Lord Krishna, I beg to offer my prayers unto you. My mind is like the bee, and it is after some honey. Kindly, therefore, give my bee mind a place at your lotus feet, which are the resources for all transcendental honey. I know that even big demigods like Brahma do not see the rays of the nails of your lotus feet, even though they are engaged in deep meditation for years together. Still, O infallible one, my ambition is such, for you are very merciful to your surrendered devotees. O Madhava, I know also that I have no genuine devotion for the service of your lotus feet. But because your lordship is inconceivably powerful, you can do what is impossible to be done. Your lotus feet can deride even the nectar of the heavenly kingdom, and therefore I am very much attracted by them. O Supreme Eternal, please therefore let my mind be fixed at your lotus feet, so that eternally I may be able to relish the taste of your transcendental service. And there's so many verses about the lotus feet of the Lord, and it's very difficult to conceive of what exactly does that mean. We're hearing that by surrendering to those lotus feet, we get to experience a honey-like taste of love for God. We see that we have to approach the feet before we can see the face of Krishna. But I have meditated for a few days about the lotus feet. What exactly does this mean? Narottam Das Thakur, he sings a song, great acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. He sings a song about taking shelter of the lotus feet of Govinda, and how a person who does that doesn't need to travel to many holy places to take pilgrimage. Often people, they do a lot of traveling to this pilgrimage place and that pilgrimage place, and they may go there without ever really experiencing Krishna. It's possible to go there with a material consciousness, with a sightseeing consciousness. They may not even have access into these holy places because they don't know how to take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. And so this is really instructive for us, that the real journey that we're trying to take isn't about going to many holy places. Although we love to do it, it's wonderful to go to Vrindavan and Mayapur and Jagannath Puri and going to Kurukshetra and all those places. But this instruction of Narottam Das Thakur opens up the vision that the real spiritual journey that we are trying to take is a journey within ourselves. It's a journey into the core of ourselves where Krishna resides, that a person can spend your whole life looking outward to many holy places without ever really seeing the Lord within our hearts. Prabhupada used to say that you can't go to Vrindavan just by taking an airplane. And why would he say that? Because Vrindavan is a realm or platform of consciousness can only be found by surrendering to the Lord's holy name. That's the entry point. By hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord or the Lord's devotee, one can become firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. So, Prabhupada explains that to be free from all material association means to cease completely from committing any further sins, just to stop it. To meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord means to become free from the effects of all previous sins. And this principle means to not willingly commit any sin in this life by constantly remembering the Lord without deviation. And that includes not committing any offenses to the holy name. We recite them after Mangalarti every morning. And so when you think about all of those 10 offenses, and there's actually many more, but those are essential, how difficult it is just to practice those few, to give up all, even after so many instructions, to chant and not give up all types of attachments. That's big. It sounds very simple, but when you look at yourself, you start to see how many offenses you're making to the holy name all of the time. So, approaching the Lord through the Lord's the lotus feet means to approach the Lord in an attitude of unconditional surrender and service to the Lord's mission to reawaken everyone's forgotten loving relationship with Him. And the portal, there's like a portal that you have to enter into that takes you to the spiritual realm that we call Vrindavan, where every word is a song and every step is a dance, is by purely chanting the Lord's holy name. Now, perhaps some of you, many of you, have the experience of chanting all of your rounds before Mangalarti. Does anybody do that in here? Has everybody ever done it? Chant all their 16 rounds before Mangalarti. And when you do that, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've had the experience, if you chant very concentrated rounds before Mangalarti, when the deities open, you totally have a different experience than when you don't. You know, there's this atmosphere, there's this face-to-face experience with the Lord on the altar by chanting our rounds. And if you haven't done it before Mangalarti, if you chant very, very focused rounds between Mangalarti and greeting, the same thing kind of happens. You're just like, because your mind and your intelligence and your false ego are totally in alignment with your heart that has been focused on Krishna all of this time. And so it's a totally different experience. So it tells me in this experience that the portal to take darshan, we can come and see with our eyes, but to actually see the deities with our heart, we have to enter through the pure chanting of the holy name. So I have a prisoner who says, he's in a terrible, terrible situation in the prison. For 35 years he's there, but he will say that the quality of my chanting will determine the quality of my day. This is so important. So it's a portal, it's an entry point into this realm of Vrindavan coming through the heart. I remember when I was almost 10 months pregnant with my son Madhava. Some of you know Madhava, Nila Madhava Mahotsva. And I was living on Inishrath Island, which is today called Hare Krishna Island. And I remember falling down a very steep set of steps, stairway. They were made of wood, very, very steep stairway. And they were going from the second floor to the first floor. And somehow or other I tripped, and my legs bent backwards, so I was bumping and sliding down the stairs on the front side of my legs. You know, if you can imagine your legs getting pinned behind you, being 10 months pregnant, you know, which is a really dangerous sort of time. That's why Madhava is so enlightened today. I don't know, but anyway, I was falling down, sliding like skis on the front side of my legs, bent backwards. And as I was going down, my head was bumping on the stair, very steep. There was like two areas. But just as I was falling down these stairs, I heard a very distinct voice within me say, "Now embrace me." It just came out of nowhere, just like, "Now embrace me." And I closed my eyes at that moment and I went unconscious. I just totally went blacked out all the way down until I reached the bottom of the steps. And then I woke up and I realized I had not felt any pain the whole way down. It was so surreal. I've never forgotten it. Just that this is an instruction to embrace Krishna within my heart was a really important way of taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. And a really good thing to remember when it comes time when we have to leave our bodies, to embrace the Lord in our heart. I'm hoping for the same result as bumping down those steps. But I learned from that moment that this is the pathway to enter the spiritual world, is really through taking shelter of the Lord within our heart at that moment of danger and crisis. There's another story. I may have already told it here in Los Angeles, but you'll have to humor me today, because it's what came to mind as I was thinking about class today. When I was growing up as a child, way before I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I used to watch a television program called The Twilight Zone. Does anybody remember that? The Twilight Zone was a half-hour program. It came on right before the Alfred Hitchcock program. So we used to watch those scary things. So I remember this one TV program, and it always left you as a cliffhanger at the end, you know, that you don't know what's going to happen in the end. But in this one particular story, I continue to remember it. It had such an impact on me in my spiritual life. There was a couple of children, and they grew up in a very wealthy family. And they had a swimming pool in the backyard, and the mother was kind of abusive and mean, even though the children had everything money could buy. They had a mom who was just really horrible. And one day they were swimming in the backyard in the swimming pool, and the little boy, he goes down to the drain and he realizes the drain is not a drain, it's a tunnel. And so he starts swimming through the tunnel, and he comes to the end of the tunnel, and out he comes into this beautiful place where there's just beautiful trees and flowers and green plants and lush grass and a clear blue sky and birds and butterflies, everything you would imagine to be the spiritual world, always springtime. And then suddenly there was this old woman who was very, very friendly, and she appeared there out of nowhere with a large tray of beautiful food with fruits and cookies and cakes and everything children love to eat. Love sugar and fat, And the little boy couldn't believe his eyes. Oh my God, where am I? I must be in heaven, This is all this sugar and fat to eat and beautiful flowers and birds. And the old woman said to him, well, why don't you come and live here forever? You can be happy forever. Just come and stay. And he said, well, let me go back and get my sister. So he goes back down in the drain, and he swims through the pipe, and he comes back up in the pool, and he tells his sister, come with me, let's get away from this very mean mother. And so he comes back with his sister, and again, she arrives. She's completely amazed at the wonderful place. And the old woman also welcomes her with a lovely tray of food and says, you can stay here. You will never want for anything if you just stay in this place. So suddenly, while the children were contemplating what to do, they hear off in the distance their mean mother yelling, where are you? You rascal children, you better come out or I will hurt you in many ways. And then the children decide, nope, we're not going back to that. We're not, we know that when we go back, she will punish us in so many ways. So they decided to stay in this beautiful place, and they lived happily ever after. So of course, this is a bit of a fairy tale. And gosh, only on Twilight Zone, you could think of such a thing. But in some ways, when I think of that story, I think of this tunnel, the portal, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra that takes us through or beyond the scope of this mundane world where there is a kind of a mother that's punishing us all the time. Durga Devi is always poking us with that three-pronged trident. And there is an escape route, happily enough. There is a way out of here. And that's through in. By getting out of here, it means you have to go in. But sadly, most people, they can't access this pathway because their minds are so covered by the material energy. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Na mam duskrishno mudha prapadyante naranama mayaya pahrita jnana asuram bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. And Prabhupada explains that simply by surrendering oneself unto, again, the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. So someone may ask, how is it that educated philosophers and scientists and businessmen and administrators and all the leaders of the world, they don't understand how to do this? It seems like a really simple process. Just surrender your heart to Krishna, bow down to Krishna, offer your obeisances to Krishna. It seems like it would be a no-brainer. But Prabhupada explains that these persons who are presenting themselves as so-called philosophers and scientists and educators, they're just pretenders, because they're just making up their own philosophy, their own plans to explain the world that they see without Krishna. And because of that, they are completely blinded by the truth that's right in front of their eyes, that Krishna is the Supreme Person, and He's behind everything. It's clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita that the material energy works fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord, and that it has no independent authority. It works just the way a shadow moves. So when the object, if you have a light shining on an object, it will reflect on the wall, and sometimes you make shadow pictures with your hands. It will only reflect on the wall what's going on with the object. And in the same way, from subtle to gross, the world that we live in or we create for ourselves is simply a reflection of our quality of consciousness within our hearts that we're projecting out on this wall of material existence. So, under illusion, Prabhupada explains, and the mode of passion and ignorance, all these miscreants, all of their plans become completely baffled. Prabhupada points to Hiranyakasipu and Ravana, and there are many others, whose plans were smashed. Although they had so much material knowledge, they had so much power, and they worked so hard like animals for getting the fruits of their labor. But because they didn't want to offer even a little portion of it back to the Supreme Lord, to say thank you. And really, the reason we do everything we do in devotional service is really to say thank you and to acknowledge the source of our lives. For without that source, we could not have anything. We couldn't even blink our eyes. We couldn't even take a breath without the ordination of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes people are so anxious about their work that they can't sleep, or they get ulcers, or they get indigestion because they're so absorbed in working that they don't notice they are destroying their health. And so it is like that even as devotees, sometimes we get busy, doing, and we forget that it's not the Krishna consciousness doing, it's the Krishna consciousness movement, but we're trying to be Krishna conscious, not do Krishna consciousness, although we do a lot of stuff. And Krishna instructs Arjuna that armed with yoga, stand and fight. So we really have to remember to connect with Krishna first in all that we do before we get busy doing all of that work, because otherwise it just becomes kind of activism. If we don't link with Krishna and do what we do as an offering to Krishna, it just becomes a lot of work because the consciousness isn't connected. I've just spent 3 weeks in Melbourne, Australia, and did a lot of counseling with devotees. And one of the things I noticed again and again, it's a repeated theme of how many plans people are making, with the assumption they're going to live long enough to fulfill them. One married couple came to me and they had a 10-year plan that they were going to work 7 days a week, 40, 50, 60 hours a week to make enough money so that in 10 years they can retire and finally start really chanting their rounds nicely. And in between all of that, they were going to have 3 children and make all this money so that they could sit down peacefully in Mayapur because they loved it so much. And they thought that's the spiritual atmosphere. I can only practice Krishna consciousness in Mayapur because that's the place. And as I was thinking of them and talking to them, I go, well, what if you don't live that long? I mean, you may not be dead tomorrow. And what is stopping you from practicing devotional life here and now, right now, while you're still alive in this place? You have a beautiful temple, you have beautiful association, you have beautiful deities, you have prasadam. What are you waiting for? 10 years, 12 years? Well, I'll be 50 then, and when I get to be 50, then I will be able to really focus. Doesn't happen like that. You have to act like you're already there. That it's not about in some future time that I'm going to develop love of God. We have to behave in a way, it's like fake it till you make it in a sort of sense, that the process is the goal. So if you want to develop pure love for Krishna, you have to start acting like you love Krishna, and it'll catch in time. You'll start to love Krishna. You have to not wait. Don't think that some place far off on the other side of the world is where you can chant Hare Krishna, because right here is where you can chant. Because this is the portal. You have the entry point. Even if you go to Mayapur and sit down, you still have to turn within you. You still have to focus your consciousness on chanting Hare Krishna and serving the deity and remembering and serving the devotees. So I don't know what that's about. I guess young people have this notion that I have a lot of time. It's kind of an illusion when you're young to think, I've got plenty of time. I'm only 20 or 30 or even 40. I've got all this time. And gosh, how many people do we know who die at 5 years old or 6 years old or even in the womb? And what an illusion that is for us. As we get old, we have other types of illusion, that we're our bodies and it hurts so much, and that's another challenge, wanting comfort and so many things. So there's a saying that there's no atheists in foxholes. And the reason that is because when you're afraid and you're in danger, most people turn to the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada actually says that even the baby within the womb of the mother is praying for deliverance. He's suffering so much in the womb. He's praying that, gosh, free me from this. When I get out of this womb, I'm going to dedicate my life fully to Krishna. But when the baby is born, there's such a trauma in childbirth that the baby completely forgets, and then he has parents and siblings and relatives all blowing sugar in every hole of his body, basically, and he's just back to thinking that he's a body. But Prabhupada said it's natural, just like the baby in the womb starts to pray because he's suffering. It's natural for a person, even a person who doesn't profess they believe in God, when they're scared, they start to pray. Because it's just natural. Everybody kind of knows that there's something higher. When they're feeling comfortable and they're proud, they poo-poo the fact that God is the Supreme Person, but just rumble a few earthquake rumbles or a tsunami comes, everybody's on their knees. And Prabhupada makes the point that because 99.9% of the population does not follow any kind of process for spiritual development, we are living in a world surrounded by people who are kind of like animals. They're so ignorant. They don't know how to eat. They don't know how to sleep. They don't know how to spend their time. They're like they're groping in the dark, not knowing what to do. And as devotees, we have this wonderful duty that's been given to us through the Parampara system. How are we going to save them? How are we going to somehow or other help people reawaken their forgotten love? Because we know that's the only solution to the suffering, is if they can somehow or other develop that love for Krishna, then all their problems will be solved. Some people say to us, you say just chant Hare Krishna and be happy, and just chant Hare Krishna, all your problems will be solved. That sounds too simplistic for it to be that simple. Is it really that simple? Well, yes and no. Yeah, it's that simple in the sense that you just have to do it. The challenge is that we have so many conditionings, and we have so many sanskaras and impressions, and we're so covered by the modes of passion and ignorance that it's sometimes really hard to just chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada says, yeah, we say it's easy, it's simple, just chant Hare Krishna, but it's actually very, very difficult. In fact, it's almost impossible for a person to develop pure love for God. Most of us are conditioned, and we're what we would call mixed devotees. So it's a long journey. Still, the process is the goal. If we want to develop pure love for Krishna, we have to practice that love. So I'm aware of the time, and I want to give us time because I know discussion and reflection is probably the most important part of the Bhagavatam class. So are there any questions or comments or takeaways from today? What are you thinking today? Yeah. Do we have a mic? I know in Melbourne they don't have a mic, so you have to repeat everything. And I know the people try to listen and they can't. They can't hear.
Maybe you can repeat that first one. We have to change that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and tell me, and I will repeat it. Yeah. Yeah, I just said to practice. This is why we have this sadhana. We get up early, whether we like it or not. We get up in the morning. In the beginning, we may not feel like it. Once you get up, you're going. We practice by offering devotion to Krishna. We hear, chant, remember. And by that process, our heart gradually becomes purified or cleaned from the dust that's covering our awareness of that eternal, that being that's filled with eternity, knowledge, and bliss that's within us. And Prabhupada said that actually we could become enlightened in a second if we really desired it. But sadly, we mostly don't desire it. If you really think of what Krishna's asking of us, it's a pretty tall order. And if we're honest and humble with ourselves, we will be able to see how much conditioning we have and our obstacles to actually surrendering. But you just do it. The best way to do it is just do it. To read Prabhupada's books, chant Hare Krishna, follow the 4 regulative principles, offer some kind of engagement in the worship of the Lord, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, those 9 processes. Try to render service to the devotional community. Think of ways and be actively engaged in trying to share what you're learning with others, because if you just read and study and practice on your own without thinking how are you going to help others, you become a miser. You know, that knowledge that you're getting rots in your heart if you don't share it. So it's a really important part. And perhaps the quickest way to develop love is by giving it to others, rather than just keeping it for yourself. So it's practice, a lot of practice, like playing a harp or a violin. You have to practice to get good at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Reflection. Takeaway. One point that you're taking out of this door today that you might use in your day. No points, no questions, no reflections, nothing. You all are pure devotees already. Yeah. Yeah.
This remembrance of God.
Yeah, talk straight into it.
Yeah, so this remembrance of God, this holding God in our hearts, and I used to hear this phrase. They said, God will always answer your prayers, but it'll answer the prayer that's the strongest.
I'd say that louder. I didn't hear it.
God will always answer your prayers, but what is your prayer in your heart? The deepest prayer, the real prayer. So we may say on the surface, I want this. I want to be close to God, but then behind that, there's other desires which are stronger that are still they're being answered. I want a house. I want a job. I want food. I want this. I want that. But yeah, the prayer is always answered. It seems whatever that.
Well, you can think about it like that. I mean, God sometimes says no. I mean, some people think, I'm praying for something, and I just never get it. I never get what I'm praying for, and well, maybe God just says no.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it possible that there's something else that you're asking for that's more than that?
Yeah. Well, God knows your mind and heart. Certainly, Krishna knows everything. So. Your pure intention is what Krishna is responding to. I was giving the Sunday Feast class in Melbourne when I first got there, and one of the, I was making the point that often, because I go to the hospital sometimes and I meet homeless people or people who are being discharged prematurely because they need the hospital bed, so they're just sort of kicking them back out on the street, which isn't really ethical, and it's probably not legal either, but they do it anyway because they need the bed. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, and I can't bring them home. But I do tell them this universe is benevolent, and there's something out there that will respond if you cry for help. And they do that, and something changes. So I made the point that when you have your back against the wall and you have a conflict, or you're stressed about, you don't know what to do, it's really helpful, and it's a user-friendly technique to cry out for help, and something will change. So somebody, when I got to the questions and answers of this class, one of the guests raised their hands and said, but for 10 years I've been praying for this thing and I never got it. Yeah. And I said, well, yeah, but that's not what I was saying. That just because you're crying, I wasn't saying if you pray for something, you will get it. Sometimes Krishna will take the desire away, and then you realize I didn't need it. But when you cry for help, something changes, and it will probably be helpful to you. But I didn't say he will fulfill all your desires. And Archita has a comment.
Oh, on this last point that you're making about crying out, and also related to your question, the true story. You know, we have this Motel Gita program where devotees place Bhagavad Gitas in motels and hotels.
Oh, right, yeah.
So one recent story just came in a couple of days ago. This guy went to a motel to commit suicide.
Oh, my.
And he went in and he found Bhagavad Gita. So he read it, and then he ran down to the clerk and he said, I came to kill myself, and this book is saving me. It saved me.
Right, yeah. So
So
Krishna,
just get the books out there.
yeah,
And you never know who's going to get it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. My prophet said, distribute my books. You can lecture to people. You can give them this advice, that advice. Give them my book. The book will do the job.
exactly, yeah, right. Yes, Pavani.
This is in reference to waiting until we're older to become Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
Is that most of us that are getting older are realizing that our short-term memory is not as good as it was at one time.
Yeah,
And I had the realization with my mother, who lived to be 100, that she had really beautiful habits in her old age. She was, of cleanliness, and her mind was very clear and focused. And my realization is that we have to develop these habits when we're young,
yeah,
not that we wait until we're older.
yeah.
Because when we're older, we won't be able to develop. At the time of death, they say, I understand that older people sometimes can't even remember the last 25 years.
Oh, no, they can't.
They're only remembering the first 25 years. So we have to learn, we have to do what we have to do now, not later.
And the plan making needs to be, how do I plan to increase my hearing, chanting, and focusing? Not all these external plans, because who knows, Krishna can smash those, you really, it's kind of arrogant to make all these plans. If we take care of our spiritual life, all of those things will take care of itself. As you said, be ready. Yeah. Anything else? All right, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Vandeham Sri Guru.
Actually, Srila Prabhupada brought me to Krishna consciousness. I had seen the devotees in Berkeley in the street. I'd given donations, bought magazines, taken prasadam and so on, and seen a Hare Krishna festival in the Berkeley Hills. But then I went to see Prabhupada give a lecture in the International House of the Berkeley campus, University of California at Berkeley. And it was actually upon seeing Prabhupada there that I really became fixed on Krishna consciousness. I had seen other so-called swamis and religious leaders. Actually, for a sociology of religion class, I had to go and observe different religious performances and ceremonies, and I'd gone to see a swami. It seemed like he wasn't saying anything practical or substantial, telling people how to relax. Just as Prabhupada, he always says that he was reluctant to go to see his spiritual master because he'd seen so many so-called sadhus. So in a little way, there's some similarity. But I went to see Prabhupada, and as soon as he entered the auditorium, I could see that this person is very different. His gravity, his power, his demeanor, he seemed to be practically like a military commander coming in. Not in the sense of a violent person or anything like that, but just as authority. Here was a person I could see obviously that was filled with authority and yet serene at the same time. So the program started, the devotees began to chant. Prabhupada got up off the Vyasasana and began dancing, jumping in ecstasy. He was obviously an elderly person. That was in 1969, so he was over 70 years old. So to see this holy person so much filled with authority, over 70 years old, dancing in ecstasy, was quite overwhelming.
One of the first observations actually that struck me, one of the things that I saw when I was first with him, after I'd joined him in Delhi, we then went to Vrindavan, and we were there for about 10 days. So I got a real chance to see Prabhupada in action. By that time I was able to live in his quarters, and Prabhupada, the first instruction that he gave me was that now your only business is to be with me 24 hours a day. So I took that quite literally, except of course when I was asleep. But I was with him day in and day out, and I got the chance to observe everything that he did, everything that he spoke, every little action that he did. And it really struck me very strongly that Prabhupada was like a living Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, in the Bhagavatam there's a full description there of what it means to be Krishna conscious. And of course there's volumes and volumes of books that describe that. And if you read them, then it might seem like, well, this is going to take a long time, you know, to realize what all of this is. It's such a vast subject. You know, what does it mean to be Krishna conscious? But it was all there in Srila Prabhupada, you know, at every moment. So I saw that, I understood that, and I resolved in my mind that I would take as much advantage of the opportunity to see him as possible, that just by observing how he did everything, how he managed things, how he spoke, how he walked, how he relaxed, how he dealt individually with different people, you know, that would show me the best example of Krishna consciousness. And you know, it just really struck me. Prabhupada was like a living, breathing Bhagavatam.
Everybody was singing Sri Guru Charana Padma, and Prabhupada was on the Vyasasana, and he was also closing his eyes and playing Karatal and singing. So I asked Lokanath Swami, isn't this a song in glorification of Prabhupada? And he said, yes. So I said, how come he himself is singing it? So he said, he's singing it to his spiritual master. Because the day before, Lokanath Swami has asked me for putting my name for initiation, and I said, I will tell you, not yet. And after I heard this explanation from Lokanath Swami, I said, you write my name for initiation. Then he said, why suddenly now? you know so many books, you this, that, and you always said wait, 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 and now you're telling. So I said, yes, I'm telling because I can see that he will be my spiritual master. This is in Hindi. Oye honge means he would be my spiritual master, because when he is glorified, he is glorifying his spiritual master. So now I know that this is actually succession. So you put my name for initiation. And my name was added, Swami Atmananda. And I heard from other God brothers that Prabhupada, when he was looking at the names for initiation, he said Bhakta this, Bhakta this, Bhakta that, and he said Swami. So he said, who is this Swami? So someone told him, it's a new Bhakta. So Prabhupada said, new Bhakta Swami? And then he said, alright, what's his name? Atmananda. So then Prabhupada said, Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedinam. His name will be Atmatattva.
When I got initiated in Los Angeles, I got a little piece of paper with my name that said Hridayananda. And so for some reason, I can't explain it or justify it, when I got my paper, I thought it was Hari Dayananda, but someone that just left out the A. The secretary had written it wrong. Can't explain that one. So when people said, what's your name? I said Hari Dayananda, which sounds like a perfectly good Krishna conscious name. In fact, it even means something in Sanskrit. So no one ever questioned me. No one ever said, that doesn't sound like a bona fide name. So for the first several months after I was initiated, I was Hari Dayananda to the world, not to Prabhupada. In fact, there's an old Back to Godhead article by Hari Dayananda Das Brahmachari. Anyway, so I wrote Prabhupada a letter about, probably about approximately a year after my initiation, and signed it Hari Dayananda. And Prabhupada wrote back and said, Dear Hridayananda, please accept my blessings. By the way, your name is Hridayananda. So I thought, how in the world would Prabhupada remember me? Then when I went to Gainesville, Prabhupada wrote a letter to some of the other devotees in the temple, the young devotees, and said, now, he said, Hridayananda is there, so I'm sure everything will go on nicely. And I was thinking, how in the world does Prabhupada remember who I am? So I was amazed by that, because I had no real importance within the structure of ISKCON. I was just a young member, and I was amazed that Prabhupada remembered who I was.
And I think the quality of Srila Prabhupada that really touched me the most was just the fact that he was so warm, and he was just so kind. It was such, I mean, from being with Prabhupada, you could immediately understand that he had a genuine concern for your welfare. He was serving us, you know, he was putting himself out in so many different ways, just to give us the chance for spiritual life. And it made you want to reciprocate by just offering whatever service that you could to Srila Prabhupada. So there was a nice reciprocation going on, and I always felt very, very